How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Screen Realm. My name is Guillermo. You're about to have a look at a chat that I was lucky enough to have with actor Zahn McClarnon, whose credits include Westworld, Fargo, Longmire, the list goes on. We talk about his new series Dark Winds, an AMC Plus noir series created by Graham Rowland based on the Leopold and Chee book series. It's a psychological thriller set in the 1970s Southwest, and it also includes a strong focus on Native American culture. This marks the first series for Zahn McClarnon as both a lead and an executive producer, and it also boasts George R.R. Martin and Robert Redford as executive producers. So in the chat ahead, we talk about his experience as both star and executive producer here, what he hopes audiences will get from Dark Winds, Native American representation on the screen, and a lot more. I hope you enjoy the chat, and if you're looking to check out Dark Winds, it premieres on AMC Plus on June 12th. Hello, sir. Nice to meet you.
You too as well, man.
So tell me, how did you get involved in the very first place? Were you approached with it? Did you chase it? I mean, George R. R. Martin, Robert Redford, big names attached. That must have been exciting.
George and Robert Redford have, been working on this for quite a few decades now. We finally landed a home at AMC, but yes, I was approached by George R. R. Martin and Tina Elmo and Vince Gerardis and Chris Eyre, who's a close friend of mine. I've known Chris for decades now, and we've worked with each other in the past. And he asked me to come aboard as Joe Leaphorn, and as well as being an EP on the show. I was thrilled to jump on board. I was very aware of who Tony Hillman was. I've read quite a few of his books, and it was a no-brainer to jump on board, especially with such a prestigious team.
Was it nerve-wracking at all?
Sure. It's my first time I've done a number one on a TV show, and as well as putting on a different hat as an EP. Wasn't quite sure what I was in for, but I was ready to put the work in, and that's what we did. It takes a lot of focus and a lot of drive, and it takes over your life for a few months, more like 6 months with the post-production and all that. But I was up for the task, and I'm happy with the result.
How did you find the balance of starring, leading a show, and also being an executive producer?
They asked me in the beginning how much I wanted to be involved, and the more I got involved, the more I wanted to be more involved. Especially because I'm very familiar with the pool of actors and talent that we have out there. It's not a big pool, and I've worked with most of the native actors and actresses out there. I'm close to our casting director, Renee Haynes, as well, so I've worked with her multiple times, and I kind of knew the ins and outs of navigating through that. And so I became more and more involved with the casting, as well as setting up cultural advisors, setting up the writing room. I knew all the writers that we used as well, had either worked with them or, knew them throughout the community. So I had a lot of support. I had people around me that supported me. I don't think I could have done it without my friend Robert Tepper, who's also an actor on the show. He plays Pete Samuels, a recurring role. I just had a lot of support around me. So, without those people, I don't think I would have been able to survive.
Talking about your character, did you find parallels between you and your character, Joe?
I think with every character that I've ever done, you have to bring your own experiences to it. Your own life experiences. I just translated my own experiences like loss and tragedy in my life to Joe. After all, every character is me. I'm just adding different layers onto it. But yeah, it's part of the process that I like to do. That's why I am an actor. I enjoy that process of bringing my own experiences to those characters. In the way I grew up, I grew up within my community. Didn't grow up in the Navajo community, but I was very familiar with some of the cultural aspects of the Navajo culture. I spent a lot of time on the Navajo reservation, on and off, for the last 20 years. And I have a lot of friends that are Dene. I took different characters I grew up with, like my uncles and tribal cops that I knew. And so you always bring your own experiences to it. So, and that's why I think it's important when that we hire Native actors for these Native roles. I think people who grew up in their own culture are going to bring something a little bit more in deep and in depth to those characters.
There was a clear mention of Hollywood westerns back in the day, and there was a specific mention of John Wayne, for example. Just how Hollywood used to produce these kind of westerns and the representation aspects, or perhaps lack thereof. Did you think that that was an important aspect of the show's discussion?
Sure. I mean, we're having control over our own stories is important. It's a great time right now that we do have control over our own stories and we're telling our own narrative. Also, just breaking some of those tropes and stereotypes, those myths that people have about American Indians is important, and the public seeing us, the audience seeing us in a different light. There's not a lot of TV shows out there where all the actors are Native. We have Rutherford Falls, we have Reservation Dogs, as well as Dark Winds now, and hopefully there'll be more to come. And it's just a good time in for representation in TV and film right now for us.
Were there any standout days that you can remember? Did things go wrong out in the wilderness? Did anything occur that you remember being the standout moment regarding filming, or was it more day to day as usual?
You're always dealing with the elements, and it was a beautiful place to shoot. But the weather is can be bad sometimes. It gets cold in November and October. It starts getting chilly. You have to deal with those elements. There's it's quite rugged out. We used different reservations, different pueblos that we shot on, the Tusuki Pueblo as well as the Cochiti Pueblo. We shot on tribal lands, and there's always the elements in the getting around physically with dirt roads, etc. And also, running around in those costumes and running around in cowboy boots in the rocks, and it's the standard stuff.
Right.
Not out there digging ditches or anything like that. We're taken care of, and but work is work. We long days in 10-12 hour days, and you kind of expect that on every shoot that you do.
Looking at this in comparison to your body of work, you've done a lot of big shows: Westworld, The Sun, Longmire, Fargo. By the way, Fargo, I'm a huge fan of Hansi Dent. I think he's one of the standout characters on TV. Great work there, by the way. Just wanted to fanboy that out. In comparison, how did you find this experience?
Each project is different. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm proud of all those projects. And it's just my first time experiencing being a number one on a call sheet and leading the show, as well as being an EP. So it obviously brought different elements to being on the set. I was on the set a lot more than I usually am. I was in a lot more scenes, which requires just more focus, and I'm all about that. I'm all about putting the work in. That's why I'm an actor. I enjoy the work. I enjoy locking myself up in my house and memorizing dialogue and getting deep into the character and figuring out objectives and scenes and where the arcs are, and so it was different in that aspect. But all the projects I'm on, I put the work in. Obviously, it's just this one was a little bit more, took a little bit more focus and more tasks.
For audiences, what are you hoping that they get out of it? Is it pure entertainment? Is it information? Is it infotainment?
Sure, all of that. I've obviously, first and foremost, I want people to be entertained. I want people to engage with these characters in the story, and that's obviously important. That's what television is to be entertained. Right. Also, I some of those romanticized kind of myths about Native Americans and tropes and stereotypes. I hope people see us in a different light, and I hope they see that in Dark Winds, that we can have our own TV shows, and we do have a lot of talent out there. We have a deep talent pool. It's not really large, but it's deep. A lot of talented people in front of the camera, as well as behind the scenes, directors, producers, and writers, as well as crew members. And I hope that the audience sees that and is able to see a step towards seeing the native experiences as normal, and how much we do make up the fabric of the not just the United States, but the Southern America as well, the indigenous population down there. You know, the American history is native history. Native history is American history,
Right.
and I hope that opens up people's eyes a little bit more.
Speaking of opening people's eyes through entertainment, one thing I love about shows and television and just screen content is that it's a fantastic way to experience a culture through a character's eyes, or some kind of walk in their shoes, even if it is just a little bit. In terms of Native American culture specifically, are there any films or TV shows out there, apart from this one, of course, that you think have understood the culture and the walk of life, or are they pretty rare?
They're rare, but you got to remember that within the Indian country, there are hundreds of different cultures within Indian country, and within hundreds of cultures, there's individuals. There's many subcultures involved. I mean, there's so many different tribes and so many different languages and so many different. Each tribe has their own traditions and their. So it's bigger than just one native culture, the United States. But yeah, there's a movie that came out quite a few years ago now. Is one of my favorite films that was it was about I believe it's the Inuit culture. It was called Fast Runner. And I think that was one of the best native stories that I've ever seen personally. But they're rare. They're rare. I mean, we have Reservation Dogs, and we have Rutherford Falls, and now we have Dark Winds. And I think that these shows are opening up the door a little bit more for native representation, and for us to be able to tell our own stories. And it's cracking that door even more. But again, I'm on the shoulders of my predecessors as well, which are like Will Sampson, Chief Dan George, Jay Silverheels. So and Taika Waititi, who's leaders of Reservation Dogs. I mean, he's doing the same thing. It's about indigenous cultures and the first peoples of these lands that are important, that we tell our own stories and have our own voice.
Yeah, that's great. The door is opening, and hopefully we get more coming through the door as we go on. Thank you very much, sir. I hope you have all the best of luck in the future, and hope to talk to you soon one day.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your time.